All right, welcome back to the brain injury discussion. This is Jay, and hope everyone's doing okay. Feel free to like, subscribe, and comment. Of course, sources will be in the description below, like always. And so we're going to talk today about balance, not just about balancing a scale, but how does our body balance, and what role does the brain play in this? So, with that being said, let's get into it because this is going to be interesting. So, how does the brain actually connect with the body to create what we know as balance or create equilibrium? Well, one of the things that really I found in doing the research, and again, coming from my old Navy days, is that this involves a lot of the ears. So, and ears are a sensory organ. So, ears by sensory intake information and they process it to go to the brain. They don't necessarily expel or create motor function. They are sensory. So, with that being said, the ear has the signal points to the brain and its semicircular canals. And these semicircular canals are right here, and they are partially filled with water. And so that connects to the vestibular nerve, which goes to the brain, which is cranial nerve number 8 of 12. So, number 8 of the 12 intracranial nerves. So, these three semicircular canals give us a real good idea of where we are, of where my head is, where my body is in placement to the ground. Also, this is connected with the eyes and other sensory organs. So, eyes, hair, um, basically anything that is a sensory organ of the outside world plays a part in um, how we are able to maintain balance, which is an interesting subject in and of itself. But if you really do look carefully, this is a lot to do with these three semicircular canals with the ear, and then they connect to the vestibular nerve, which goes to the brain, which, to a brain nerd like me, that is always an interesting topic. So, that being said, let's continue because I find this fascinating. So the structures that are also involved in balance are not necessarily just outside of the brain, um, like the eyes, like the ears, like the inner ear. I mean, technically, that's not inside uh, the brain itself, but it does connect to the brain. And we're also talking about structures like the basal ganglia, the hippocampus, the parietal cortex, which, as you've seen in our previous videos, like, okay, the parietal over here and that deals with a lot of the sensory and motor cortexes. And so we're also talking about the cerebellum is involved, which is this structure right here that is actually sits below the cerebrum. And that is a big part of the brain. It is right off of the spinal cord. Also includes the thalamus, which is here. Now, pardon my terrible drawing, but it's not just that the ears, the eyes connect straight into the brain via the way of the eighth intracranial nerve. It's these other structures that help interpret that information and bring it to forbearance that I know where I am in space and time. So the reason why I look this way is because I'm maintaining balance via my ears, which, yes, they're covered, but those three semicircular canals are telling me where gravity is so that way I can have a better idea, or at least my brain processes as this is where I am in space and time. And it uses all of these internal structures to help do that. So, with that being said, those are some of the internal structures. And when we're thinking about brain injury, we might be thinking about injuries to any one of these could, in fact, affect someone's balance. So, and thinking about this, what what can we do about balance itself? That's a very good question. What can we do about balance? Well, according to this source, brain training can really boil down to physical exercise. Okay, physical habits, physical exercise. Also, for example, if you're doing jumping jacks, you are creating a space and time and you're receiving and sending signals. So you're really exercising your brain as well as your muscles. Also, healthy habits. You want to maintain a good level of health. Now, what does this result in? Well, according to this article, which sources down here, also in the description. Increased cognition, so that's good. Healthier gray matter, which is that outer cerebral matter. We're talking about increased processing speed, so your brain is not working on 25 miles, per hour, but more on highway speeds instead of you know, small town speeds. So you're able to process that information faster to get a much better, clearer picture, not only more accurate, but you're also able to get it quicker. So also, we're talking about overall increased performance, and this seems to be a common theme that, maintaining overall health is generally good for not only the body from the neck down, but also from the neck up. Maintaining overall health is good for the brain too. So, um, but what does this really lead me to believe? Well, um, the source here that is on the left really points out that 30% of those above the age of 65 experience balance problems. So this results in a loss of independence and increased mortality. Now, when you fall down, that can be a serious injury. And there are a lot of problematic illnesses that can kind of play into that injury. For example, if someone had osteoporosis, or shall we say, less calcium phosphorus in the bones, that might lead to a broken bone, which might be more of the attention. So sometimes we have a tendency to put blinders on and hyperfixate onto one issue, but this could also be a brain issue as well. And maintaining health helps prevent this. And again, that 30%, the way I've always said it is the best brain injury is the brain injury you prevented. And if we can prevent falls, we can prevent falls that lead to hits in the head. Now, that is just one perspective where they're looking at the falls as a cause of a brain injury, but what does a brain injury do to the brain and balance? Well, that's what this next point covers. And this next point says post traumatic brain injury, which is this source down here, we see damage to that eighth intracranial nerve that is quite possible. So, this is a possible brain injury. And if someone that you know, or you're working with someone that has that brain injury and they are having problem maintaining that level of balance, you might be able to deduce from that maybe they have an injury to one of those internal brain structures, like we mentioned before, like the cerebellum or the hippocampus. Or maybe it's a vestibular problem with the ears, or maybe it's the nerve problem. So if everything else looks correct, I mean, this could be post-traumatic brain injury damage to the systems that maintain balance. And also, post a traumatic brain injury, that can also affect your vision. What if you hit the occipital lobe of your brain and you get vision problems? Well, your balance might be affected by that. What if you hit that eighth intracranial nerve, the vestibular system, and it affects your hearing? What if you hit Broca's or Wernicke's area, which is area over here in the side of the brain, that helps with auditory information processing? Any sort of injury there might cause a loss of balance, which a loss of balance might lead to more and more traumatic brain injuries. So that is why I really do like to emphasize the prevention of injuries before it happens. And so, as you can see, one of the things that has been implemented and has been implemented for a while, especially in hospitals, is this thing right here, a fall risk. Now, working in healthcare, you see these occasionally. As someone who's walking around, you might want to keep a close eye on them. There's also other things to help mitigate that we can do to add on, not just of health wise, right? But we can also use tools like what this is right here, and that is a cane. There's also walkers, there are also wheelchairs, there's also other tools to help maintain someone's balance. And so what this cane does is it really does lengthen this arm and helps, you can use that, as another point of contact with the ground. But you see this thing as that says fall risk. That might be something important right there, uh, because they don't give that to just anybody. So, but that is what this really connects with. And usually, one brain injury begets another brain injury. So, obviously, I want to prevent brain injuries from being a brain injury case manager, right? Not because I don't want to see people or help people. It's because I want people to prevent the brain injury before it happens. And having this information really does play a role in that. So, what does this lead me as the brain injury case manager to conclude? Well, first off, balance is important to daily life. So, walking is a very daily activity, whether you're getting up from the bed to go make your morning coffee or make your breakfast. Walking is a part of that daily activity. Driving is a daily activity. Balance is important to all of these things. I mean, when you're driving, do you really want to have an episode of vertigo? That would be dangerous. And so that would lead to a loss of independence if you can't maintain your balance. It would lead to you relying on something like a walker or a cane or being a fall risk that does entail some consequences to daily life. We can prevent these things in large part by maintaining overall health. Like many other brain injuries, maintaining overall health is one of those modifiers that you yourself can control. And that is something that we all can participate in and encourage. We should be able to encourage healthy habits. Um, and that's something that we can all do together. The brain is important with the balance, and in fact, one of the most important organs, um, not just the ears, not just the eyes, not just the sensory organs that process the information that gets sent to the brain, but it's also the brain processing that information to create the picture and create that equilibrium, or a damaged part to that system could equate to unequilibrium or a loss of balance. And so the eyes and ears, they are connected. And again, this is very serious, especially for the elderly population, especially 65 and above. Now, the elderly population would be at more risk for this. And so, if we're able to talk about this and have an open conversation about what we can do to prevent these things, um, we might be able to have less falls. We might be able to have less balance problems, and we can live long, full, healthy lives. And so those are just some of my perspectives as a brain injury case manager. I prefer to prevent injuries before they happen, but if I can prevent further injuries, that would also be great. And maybe prevention is the key. With that being said, I hope you all have gotten something away from this. Those are the resources. You will find those in the description below. I hope you all have a wonderful day.